Hey guys, what is going on? Danny here. So today I wanted to bring you guys some more Rise of Iron info. Like I said in a previous video, link in the description box below, we, OSG, will absolutely be participating in the expansion. However, I wanted to take the time out today to go over one of the new features that we are absolutely really excited about, and that is the complete overhaul of the artifact system. Now currently, artifacts really don't do too much in the way of changing gameplay or character customization. Speaking from personal experience, they basically just felt like another piece of gear to grind for in hopes of snagging a 335 light level piece. Beyond that, it was just another way to try and get tier 12 stat distribution, and I'll probably go into detail a little more about that in a later video. Bungie, however, has decided to completely change how artifacts work in the game. They will now offer quote-unquote game-changing abilities and will hopefully add a lot more variety between individual characters and gameplay styles. Today specifically though, I wanted to hone in on 8 specific new artifacts that will be appearing in the expansion. These are, of course, the Iron Lord artifacts. Game Informer, and by proxy Bungie, have given us the info on 8 artifacts that honor the memory of the fallen Iron Lords, who are Radagast, Perun, Yolder, Silumar, Felwinter, Gelion, Scori, and Timer. And these Iron Lords gave their lives to seal away the Siva Plague in what we now know to be the Plague Lands. Now the Siva Plague is apparently a technological plague, and we'll be seeing a lot more of that when the Rise of Iron drops. They're basically the main enemy faction. Now, going through each of these artifacts, I'm going to kind of give my own personal thoughts on what these artifacts will do. So first up, Memory of Radagast. Described as the first among equals, Radagast the Titan was the King Arthur of the group, and strode into battle with a mighty sword in hand. His artifact adds a new ability for sword-heavy weapons, letting you reflect energy-based projectiles including everything from an ogre's blast to a crucible opponent's rocket. That's awesome. Now, this artifact could absolutely turn the tide of battle, and I'm specifically thinking of Trials heavy rounds, and everyone knows how this can go. Essentially, it's a rush to the heavy, and if you got rockets, especially seeking rockets, truth, it can be a really hard time to win that round. But with this is absolutely going to come in handy. The one question I have though is whether or not this is just going to be a simple reflection, as in like it'll hit the sword and bounce off into the ground, or if it's a return to sender type deal. That could get pretty tricky. Next up is Memory of Perun. The field commander of the Iron Lords was a consummate strategist, and her situational awareness went beyond even fellow hunters. If you bear her artifact into battle, then enemy gardens with full supers are highlighted yellow, and all enemies with low health are highlighted red for easy targeting. Clearly for use in the Crucible, this is another artifact that will be extremely useful. Knowing exactly when an enemy has a super or is absolute, meaning killable with one shot, is key for various small and big team tactics. Next up is Memory of Yolder. A particularly close companion of Saladin, Yolder was a mighty Titan champion who ran bravely into battle without a thought for her own safety. Her artifact bears an ability that many players have longed for since the game's launch, the ability to completely eliminate sprint cooldown, allowing your guardian to ceaselessly charge ahead. Honestly, not entirely sure about how I feel about this. The removal of sprint cooldown is definitely a great thing to have for sure in many applications, but some of the other applications, quite frankly, could be really devastating. Imagine a Striker Titan with Peregrine Greaves or MK44 Stand-asides and the Memory of Yolder. Shoulder charge could get extremely out of hand with this, and honestly more so than already is in my opinion. Next is Memory of Silumar. Silumar was proud, wrathful, and brilliant, and the architect of the Iron Temple that sits atop Felwinter Peak. He was a defense-oriented Titan, always looking for a way to offer better protection. As such, his artifact provides a unique ward, the ability to dramatically reduce any damage inflicted through damage over time, or dot effects. It should be a welcome deterrence, especially since the infamous Thorn Hand Cannon is returning in Year 3. Now this is an interesting artifact to be sure, with loads of practical applications. Obviously just beyond the Thorn Resurgence, which is a whole thing unto itself, I can't even count the number of times that I've been hit by solar grenades that leave a burn effect only to die after either winning or escaping the encounter. and I'm sure we'll see a lot of this artifact put to good use in the Crucible. Fifth is Memory of Felwinter. The great enigma of the Iron Lords, Felwinter was an Iron Lord with good intentions, but sometimes questionable and unusual ways of interacting with the light. The Warlock discovered the mountaintop retreat that would become the Iron Lord's home. This artifact offers the most dramatic gameplay modifier. Lose your super, but gain an extra grenade and melee charge, a boost to all your stats, and orbs recharge your grenade and melee abilities. Now this artifact I'm extremely excited for. The loss of your super is a huge trade-off to be sure, but doubling down on grenades and melees is a pretty big upside as well. This means that we can play around with builds and change up some exotics that offered similar perks, and I can definitely see this being a danger in the hands of wombo combo hunters. Sixth is Memory of Gelion. The hunter named Gelion may have been a sullen pessimist, but few doubted his assessments of the situation on the ground, no matter how dire. Guardians that wield his artifact gain detailed radar at all times, and radar persists when aiming primary weapons. This is the one I'm probably least excited for, because it essentially means that we get knucklehead radar at all times, and beyond that, it makes that exotic, or that specific exotic, almost redundant or obsolete. But not only this, it also puts the third eye perk, which is a perk on primary weapons that allows you to essentially keep your radar when aiming down the sights. It puts it in a precarious position, so we'll have to see how this actually gets used in gameplay. Seventh is Memory of Scory. If Radagast echoes the legends of Arthur, then Scory is Merlin. This legendary battle bard and warlock inspired her allies with songs and wisdom. Guardians who follow in her footsteps use her artifact to glow with an inspiring light that speeds up super recharge for all nearby allies. Now this will absolutely become a key part of many builds when the expansion drops. Increasing super recharge is an ability that spans both PvE and PvP. Strikes and raids will have more super usage, while many Crucible game modes have the potential to turn into mayhem type games of their own. Of course, this will depend on just how much of a buff to recharge time we actually receive, and how close in proximity other Guardians need to be to receive the buff. Now last, and certainly not least, is Memory of Timer. Creepy and misunderstood, Timer's warlock powers and demeanor almost recall those of a controlling necromancer. Guardians willing to flirt with the shadow can take out Timer's artifact and transform their melee attack, giving it a chance to turn low-power minions of darkness into allies. These enemy creatures fight at your side, turning their weapons on confused fellow aliens. Another melee a few seconds later puts them back in their right mind, or the effect expires after 30 seconds. Now this is probably the most unique of all the artifacts. We haven't even seen anything like this in the game to date. Even though it's relegated to basically a strictly PvE use, the implications are actually quite vast. It's key to note, however, that it states that this mind control effect will only work on low power enemies. Now I'm going to assume this means red bar enemies. I can't imagine yellow health bar enemies, majors or ultras being affected by this power. Even so, imagine the devastation that could be wrought if you had a Hive Ogre using its Eye Blast to decimate your foes. Pretty cool in my opinion. But that wraps up all 8 artifacts, guys. I'm honestly torn at which one I'll be using the most. I'm positive I'll be switching it up depending on the situation, but since, according to Game Informer, we can only procure 1 a week for the first 8 weeks from the new Cryptarch vendor Tyra Karn, I'll have to decide the order in which I get them, and given all these abilities, I know it won't be an easy choice. Anyway, that wraps it up for this video, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and hit that subscribe button. We will be putting out more videos in the coming weeks, and of course once Rise of Iron drops, so stay tuned. Archangel out.